Hello, sorry for the short delay. I had to start my own video. I'm Jason Matthews, owner of Matthews Painting Company here in Warsaw and Indiana, Syracuse, Indiana, and about a 30-mile radius from those two cities where we do our work. We've had a lot of folks over the years ask us about how to touch up their walls or trim. The most important thing when it comes to touching up your walls or your trim is that you have the original paint. That's probably the most important thing. If you have the original paint, it's something that you will want to keep from freezing. Also, you will want to be able to have it in a container that does not have a lot of air in it. So what I mean by that is if you have a gallon of paint, you want the paint up as high as you can in that gallon. Now, sometimes the leftover paint was left and there's only maybe a gallon half full or a quarter full. If that's the case, you're a lot better off in putting it into another container that's smaller so that the least amount of air is in there. It's also important to shake your paint once a year if you can, and keep in like a basement or a closet. Garage if it's heated, but even with garages, there's a lot of moisture typically in garages, and if you have a metal paint can, your lid a lot of times can rust onto the can and you cannot get the lid off sometimes after 2 or 3 years. But your touch-up paint's usually good for, it can be good for up to 8 to 10 years. It just depends on, again, how full it is in the container. If you have your original paint, you can shake it up, pour it into a pan, and the second most important thing when you're touching up walls, we'll focus on walls here for a minute, is that you have the same thickness of roller that your professional painter used before. Maybe you don't know, and that's okay. If that's the case, I would start with a 1/2 inch nap roller cover. What I mean by that is that the knit or the fur on it, the fuzz, whatever you want to call it as a homeowner, is a 1/2 inch thick. You don't want to get 3/4 inch or 1/4 is too thin. Most painters would roll their walls with a 1/2 inch nap, we call it, or a 1/2 inch thick roller cover. Some use a 3/8 as well, but most professional painters are using a 1/2 inch. And once you get your actual wall ready and prepped for the touch-up painting, so maybe that would mean that you would need to spackle a dent and sand that repair, or put your tape and drop cloths down. The best thing to do is stay as small as possible. So let's just say you're touching up areas the size of a quarter or even the size of an orange. Once you get your roller kind of full of paint, I would roll that out like on a box or something and kind of work it into the roller itself, and do that a couple times before you go to your wall. But what I would do is I would start really low in a corner or behind a piece of furniture, behind a TV, or even behind a picture, and I would just barely tilt the roller and just dab the end of the roller, the edge of the roller, over the area you're trying to touch up. But for your test piece, just dab an area about the size of maybe a lime or a lemon. Let that dry and then take a look at it and make sure it's going to match the color on your wall. Sometimes you may have moved into a home and there could be 2 or 3 colors in the home and they all look the same color, and you could have maybe the bedroom color and you're trying to use it in the living room, and now it's like, wow, you don't want to have 20 spots you touched up and it's like, oops, I had the wrong color. So try it down low in an inconspicuous area or behind a picture. If the color looks good, then you can go around and you can just bump the edge of your roller. So again, you're taking your roller, bending it slightly, just bumping it with your roller. That gives a little bit of texture that the wall has already, and that's typically will give you your best wall touch-ups. You do not want to necessarily start rolling large areas that are only small. If you're touching up big areas, then yes, you want to just roll it with your roller and then feather off in every direction if it's primer, because you would want to primer repair that big. Then when you get to the actual touch-up painting, you would then roll the paint in a larger area, and you can take a look and see how that would look for you. One of the problems when we're doing touch-up on walls is your touch-up looks a little shinier. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that, where you come in and you see all these shiny areas where someone tried to touch up. If you are working with a latex or a water-based paint, you can add a little bit of water, and you want to just do a little bit at a time, but water will lessen the sheen of a water-based paint. And so let's just say you want to get a little, I would say maybe a couple cups of paint in a little bucket or in a measuring tin. You can mix it in a little bit of water, and then you can do your little test on your wall and wait and let that dry. If you're wanting to accelerate the drying and you do not have a lot of time, you can use a hair dryer to dry those spots. And you keep adding a little bit of water until your sheen matches the sheen that you have on your wall. So even if you have, let's just say, a satin sheen or an eggshell sheen, it can still get shinier and shinier as you keep touching up. And so that's where a little bit of water in your paint can help actually not only match the sheen, but it can get it a lot closer to what the original paint job was. Do not use a brush. I mean, unless you're up in a corner or along like a window or a door, I would not use a brush when touching up your walls. The best way to touch up trim typically is with a brush, especially if you had original paint, but I would use your original paint if you had it. If you cannot find the original paint and you have a whole house full of trim and doors that are really dinged up, the best thing you can do is you remove a door from your home, take it off the hinges, mark the side with tape that is facing out into the majority of the room. In other words, do not match the inside of a closet door, for example, because the paint ages differently in dark areas compared to light areas, especially if you were working with an old oil-based product. And I would take that door into your local Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore paint store, and I would have them match the color and the sheen in a really good urethanized water-based paint. Those paints would be paints such as Cabinet Coat from Instalex, which is a Benjamin Moore owned company, or Emerald urethane trim paint from Sherwin-Williams would be the two I'd recommend that will bond to an old oil base in case that's indeed what you have. Then they match your door, the color and sheen. Now you have good touch-up to go around your house. Now granted, a touch-up is a touch-up, folks. It's not going to look like you did a fresh paint job. But this will help you in matching color and sheen when it comes to touching up your trim, doors, or your walls. And again, if you had a water-based trim paint that was too shiny, you would just add, again, a little bit of water, and that will lessen the sheen a little bit, even with your trim and your door paint. So I hope that was helpful. Happy touch-up painting. If you are a previous client, our new warranty this year that we added to our current 5-year interior warranty is 1 hour of free touch-up for life. And that also is retroactive. That also goes backwards. I think I used the right word. Maybe one of you can correct me, my English. So it was nice sharing with you on wall and trim and door touch-up. And let us know how it goes.